This is a life story. A story of a boy who grew up in pain, who watched his father suffer, who lived in broken apartments and walked through life feeling invisible. And yet, he went on to build one of the most loved brands on earth. Not just a coffee shop, but a brand that changed how the world starts its day. And no, he wasn't born rich. No, he didn't have connections. No, he didn't even found the company he would one day transform. He was laughed at, rejected, and told, "No one will ever pay $3 for a cup of coffee." He heard no not once, not 10 times, but 217 times. And still, he did it. His name is Howard Schultz. And this is the story of how he turned a painful childhood into a billion-dollar brand. Part 1. The Boy Who Grew Up in Japan. Brooklyn, New York, 1953. Howard Schultz was born into a world where dreams were small, because life was hard. He grew up in the Bayview Housing Projects, a government housing project in a rough Brooklyn neighborhood where people survived paycheck to paycheck. His father was a delivery driver, no big job, no stability, no health insurance. One day, he slipped on ice and injured his hip badly. And you know what happened? Nothing. No medical help, no compensation, no support, no voice. Howard watched his father, a strong man, become broken and hopeless overnight. He watched him sit on the couch, jobless, depressed, and filled with shame. There was no one to help, no one to care. Howard would later say, "That moment changed me. I saw what it meant to be a number, not a person. I promised myself, if I ever built a company, it would honor people, not crush them." He was just a boy, but that pain stayed in his soul. They were so poor, Howard used to feel embarrassed to bring friends home. He had no room of his own, no luxury, not even enough clothes sometimes. He said, "When you're that poor, you never forget it. Poverty leaves a shadow." But this shadow didn't kill him. It lit a fire inside him. Howard had no path laid out for success, but he had one superpower: determination. He played sports. He worked odd jobs. He sold newspapers. He saved money. And against all odds, he became the first in his family to go to college. But even that wasn't easy. He didn't go to Harvard. He went to Northern Michigan University on a football scholarship and worked as a bartender and salesman to pay for school. After college, he started working as a salesman for Xerox, one of the best sales training companies at that time. He was good, very good. But Howard wanted more. One day, he joined a small kitchenware company. His job? Sell coffee machines to local cafes. And that's when something unexpected happened. While analyzing sales reports, he noticed one small client in Seattle kept buying more machines than anyone else. He was curious, so he flew there to find out why. The company was called Starbucks. At that time, it had just 4 stores, and it didn't even sell coffee to drink, just beans, grinders, and equipment. But there was something about the people, the energy, the philosophy. Howard fell in love. He said, "There was something magical about Starbucks. I saw more than coffee. I saw warmth, authenticity, culture." And in that moment, a seed was planted. He quit his job. He joined Starbucks. But he had no idea that this small decision would lead to the biggest battle of his life. Howard Schultz had seen pain. He had felt invisible. He had been poor, hopeless, and humiliated. But he also had a dream: to build something better than what his father had, to build a company that respected people. And he had just found the perfect soil: Starbucks. What he didn't know yet was that the very people he admired would soon turn down his biggest idea. They would say, "That's not who we are." But Howard Schultz was no ordinary man. He didn't just sell coffee. He was about to sell a new way of life. Howard Schultz had joined Starbucks, a small company in Seattle. He was not the owner. He was not rich. He was just an employee. But inside him, something bigger was growing, a vision that nobody else could see. In 1983, Starbucks sent Howard to Milan, Italy, for a trade show. It was supposed to be a short business trip, but what he discovered there changed the direction of his life. As he walked through the streets of Milan, something caught his heart. There were espresso bars on every corner, busy, vibrant, full of people. But they weren't just drinking coffee. They were talking, laughing, sharing moments, connecting. The barista knew people by name. Customers didn't just come for coffee. They came for experience, emotion, community. Howard stood there, speechless. It was like stepping into a new world. This is it, he thought. This is what America doesn't have. We don't have this culture, this experience, this feeling. He didn't see coffee. He saw warmth. He saw belonging. He saw something human. When he returned to Seattle, Howard walked into the Starbucks office on fire with excitement. He told the founders, "We need to open coffee bars, not just sell beans. Let people drink the coffee here. Let's create that Italian espresso culture, right here in America." He was excited. He was confident. He was ready to build something new. But then came the answer that broke him. The founders of Starbucks, Jerry Baldwin, Zev Siegel, and Gordon Bowker, listened quietly. Then they said, "No, that's not who we are. We sell coffee beans, not serve drinks." They didn't believe Americans would ever go for it. They thought people wouldn't pay $2 or $3 for a cup of coffee. They thought it was too risky, too strange. Howard was stunned. This was his moment, his dream, his mission, and it was crushed. Howard didn't argue. He didn't scream, but inside he knew. If they won't do it, I have to do it myself. And so, with nothing but belief, Howard made the biggest decision of his life. He would leave Starbucks to start his own coffee bar. Howard was heartbroken. He loved Starbucks, but his dream was bigger than loyalty. So in 1985, he quit. He decided to start a company called Il Giornale, named after an Italian newspaper. But he had no money. He had to raise funds to start. Howard believed in his idea. He thought investors would too. But what happened? Rejection. After rejection. After rejection. He would walk into meetings full of passion and walk out with closed doors. Americans won't pay $3 for coffee. You're not Italian. This won't work here. You're dreaming too big. He was laughed at, ignored, and insulted. He said, "I was rejected 217 times. That number is burned into my brain." But he kept going, day after day, meeting after meeting, pitch after pitch, until finally, 30 investors said yes. He raised $400,000. And in 1986, opened his first coffee bar in Seattle. It wasn't just a coffee shop. It was a love letter to Italy. Howard made sure everything felt different. Italian music played softly in the background. Baristas remembered your name. You didn't just buy coffee. You had an experience. And guess what? People loved it. They didn't care that it was new. They didn't care about the price. They came for the feeling. Il Giornale became an instant hit. Howard proved them wrong. While Il Giornale was booming, something unexpected happened. The founders of Starbucks, the very people who said no, decided to sell the company. They were moving on. Starbucks was too small for them now. Howard saw a chance, a big one, a dangerous one. A dream that had once been denied to him was now up for sale. But there was a problem. In 1987, Howard found out the price. To buy Starbucks, he needed $3.8 million. That's about $10 million today. And Howard didn't have that kind of money. He was still small, still building. But this wasn't just a business move for him. This was personal. This was his dream. So once again, he went back into battle. He talked to every investor he could find. He begged, he pitched, he cried. He told them, "This is not just a coffee company. This is my life's purpose." Finally, after weeks of effort, he raised the money. And in August 1987, at age 34, Howard Schultz bought Starbucks for $3.8 million, and he didn't just buy the company. He bought back his vision. Part 2. The coffee that became a culture. It was 1987. Howard had just bought Starbucks, but what did he actually buy? It wasn't a global brand. It wasn't profitable. It wasn't even a proper cafe. All it had was 6 stores, a small roasting plant, a confused brand identity, and a few dozen employees. The company did not serve coffee to drink. It only sold coffee beans, machines, and accessories. There were no lattes, no cappuccinos, no frappuccinos, and no music. Nothing you recognize today existed yet. Howard had a mountain to climb. Howard didn't just want to own Starbucks, he wanted to reinvent it. His mission was clear. Starbucks will not just sell coffee, it will sell an experience, a feeling, a third place between work and home. So he got to work. Howard had 3 key principles. 1. Create a human connection. Customers should feel seen, valued, and respected. 2. Design stores with emotion. Each store would be warm, inviting, with soft lighting, music, and a unique smell. 3. Make every cup feel personal. The baristas would remember names, smile, and make you feel like family. He didn't want to sell fast coffee. He wanted to build ritual, emotion, and community, just like he saw in Italy. Howard focused on tiny things that other businesses ignored. The smell inside the store. Never let food overpower the smell of coffee. The music. Every Starbucks had curated playlists to match the mood. The seating. Cozy, not cramped. The counters, designed so baristas and customers could talk comfortably. The lighting, always soft, never harsh. The names on cups, to make every customer feel special. And most importantly, the person behind the counter is not just making coffee. They are creating warmth. Howard believed the employees were the heart of the brand. He didn't call them staff or workers. He called them partners. Even part-time baristas were given healthcare benefits, stock options, training not just for skill, but for soul. This was revolutionary in America, especially for a coffee shop. Howard said, "If we treat our people well, they will treat our customers well, and everything will take care of itself." He made sure baristas looked customers in the eye, smiled, asked how your day was, remembered regulars. In Starbucks, you were not a number. You were a name, a person, a story. In 1987, after Howard took over, Starbucks had just 6 stores. No national presence, a huge vision but very little profit. Over the next 5 years, he grew Starbucks to 165 stores, across cities like Chicago, Vancouver, and New York. But this growth wasn't random. Every location was carefully picked. Every store was designed to create community, not just sell coffee. Howard refused to franchise the stores. Why? Because he wanted to protect the experience. He said, "I want to control the quality, the emotion, the feeling. That can't be outsourced." Before Starbucks, most Americans had never heard of espresso, Latte, cappuccino, macchiato, frappuccino. Howard made these words part of everyday life. He trained his staff and customers to learn them, patiently and respectfully. And slowly, the culture changed. People didn't just say coffee, they said, "Can I get a tall vanilla latte with soy milk?" Starbucks didn't just sell drinks. It educated, uplifted, and reshaped how people thought about their daily routine. Howard knew the power of branding. He didn't want just a good cup of coffee. He wanted customers to feel proud holding a Starbucks cup. So they invested heavily in clean, minimalist logo design, high-quality cup materials, consistent green and white branding, a sense of premium experience. Very soon, holding a Starbucks cup became a statement. I'm successful. I have taste. I take care of myself. This is my time. Howard realized something deep. People aren't just buying coffee. They're buying a moment of peace, a sense of belonging, a way to feel seen. And that's exactly what he gave them. For a few dollars, 3, 4, 5, people didn't just get a drink. They got a cozy seat, calm music, friendly conversation, a small break from the chaos of life. And that was priceless. By the early 1990s, Starbucks had expanded to several major U.S. cities. It was earning millions in revenue. Customer loyalty was extremely high. The brand was now seen as modern, classy, and cool. People went to Starbucks to read, to write, to have meetings, to fall in love, to take a break, to feel human. By the early 1990s, Starbucks was no longer just a Seattle brand. It had become a national sensation. The coffee shop was a cultural icon, a lifestyle statement, a business case study, and a morning ritual for millions. But Howard was not satisfied. He wasn't thinking about 100 stores. He was thinking 10,000. He wanted to take Starbucks to Europe, Asia, every airport, every corner of every city. And to do that, he needed serious capital. In 1992, Starbucks went public on the NASDAQ stock exchange. Ticker symbol, SBX. Stock price, $17 per share. Initial valuation, around $250 million. Howard Schultz, once rejected 217 times, now had built a company that Wall Street wanted to own. The IPO was a massive success. Starbucks stock skyrocketed in the first year. With fresh funding, Howard had the fuel he needed to expand faster than ever before. While Starbucks was expanding, something unexpected happened. In 1994, in Santa Monica, California, a small group of Starbucks baristas noticed something. Customers were asking for cold blended coffee drinks. At the time, Starbucks had no cold coffee menu. But these baristas didn't wait for approval. They experimented. They blended espresso with ice, milk, chocolate, whipped cream, and created something new. When Howard found out, he didn't punish them. He didn't say, "That's not in the manual." Instead, he tasted the drink and smiled. "This is brilliant," he said. "We're launching it nationwide." In 1995, Starbucks officially launched the Frappuccino. It became an instant sensation, especially with younger customers. In its first full year, Frappuccino generated over $50 million in revenue. It wasn't part of the original plan, but it became one of Starbucks' most successful products of all time. With momentum building in the U.S., Howard now looked beyond American borders. His first international target? Tokyo, Japan. Why Japan? Because Japanese culture respected ritual, precision, and aesthetics. They had a growing interest in Western lifestyle. It was the perfect mix of tradition and modernism. In 1996, Starbucks opened its first store outside the U.S., in Tokyo. And guess what? It was an overwhelming success. People stood in lines. It became a fashion statement, and it set the tone for future global expansion. After Japan came, UK, China, Singapore, South Korea, United Arab Emirates, Germany, and dozens more. By the end of the 1990s, Starbucks was in over 20 countries. As Starbucks grew, so did the numbers. By 1997, 1,400 stores. By 1999, 2,500 plus stores. Annual revenue, over $1 billion. Howard's net worth, over $100 million. But along with success came new challenges. When you grow from one store to 2,500 in a few years, quality control becomes a nightmare. Some problems started to appear. Inconsistency. Some stores felt warm and personal. Others felt cold and robotic. Overcrowding. Stores became too busy. People complained about long lines and noise. Overstandardization. The same colors, music, and design began to feel too corporate. Howard felt uneasy. I didn't want to build McDonald's. I wanted to build something meaningful. But now Wall Street was involved. Shareholders wanted faster growth, more stores, higher profits. Howard was now in a tug of war, between vision and velocity, between purpose and pressure, between soul and scale. At this point, Howard Schultz was not just a CEO. He was managing thousands of employees, overseeing global expansion, dealing with investors, protecting company culture. He was exhausted. In 2000, after building Starbucks for nearly 20 years, Howard made a shocking announcement. He was stepping down as CEO. Howard said, "I've taken the company as far as I can. Now it's time for someone else to take it higher." He stayed as chairman but gave day-to-day leadership to Orrin Smith and later Jim Donald. The new leaders focused more on growth, stock prices, and systems. And at first, it worked. Stores kept opening. Profits kept growing. Stock prices kept rising. But something else was growing too. Disconnection. Howard would later say, "I walked into some stores, and I didn't recognize them. They were clean, busy, profitable, but something was missing." The soul of Starbucks, that warm, personal feeling, was fading. By 2007, cracks turned into shocks. The global financial crisis hit. Consumers were spending less. Critics began saying, "Why pay $4 for coffee in a recession?" Starbucks started closing stores, cutting jobs, facing public criticism. Its stock price dropped from $40 to $8, an 80% crash. And suddenly the company that once felt invincible looked like it might fall apart. Howard watched from the sidelines, helpless, frustrated, and heartbroken. But he wasn't done yet. Part 3. The Comeback of a Broken Dream. It's 2008. Starbucks is in trouble. The global economy is falling apart. The world is entering a financial crisis. People are losing their jobs. Families are cutting their spending. And suddenly, $4 coffee no longer feels like a small treat. It feels like a luxury they can't afford. Sales drop. Customer visits fall. Store traffic slows. Starbucks, once a symbol of modern culture, is now seen as overpriced, overrated, overexpanded. And the numbers are brutal. In 1 year, the stock falls from $40 to under $8. The company loses over $6 billion in value. Store closures begin. Hundreds of locations shut down. Thousands of employees are laid off. Morale collapses inside the company. The magic is gone. And behind the scenes, one man is watching. Heartbroken. Howard Schultz is no longer CEO. He stepped down in 2000. But he remained chairman, watching from a distance. He visits stores and feels a sharp pain in his chest. "This is not what I built," he whispers. He sees dirty floors, distracted baristas, empty chairs, customers who feel rushed and invisible. Everything he stood for, Connection, experience, emotion is fading fast. And then, one day, the board of directors comes to him and says, "Howard, we need you back." It's January 2008. Howard Schultz, now 54 years old, steps back in as CEO of Starbucks. But this time, it's different. He's not coming back to lead a celebration. He's coming back to save a dying dream. And he knows the truth. This will be the hardest fight of his life. The world is in crisis. The media doubts him. The company is collapsing. And worse, the culture is broken. But Howard doesn't hide. He steps in with fire in his eyes and says to his team, "We are not in the coffee business serving people. We are in the people business serving coffee. And we've forgotten that." Howard begins with radical decisions. 1. Closes 900 stores. Yes, 900 stores across the US and abroad are shut down. Not because they didn't make money, but because they didn't reflect the brand's soul. 2. Fires thousands of employees. It breaks his heart, but he knows. If we don't cut now, we may not survive. 3. Halts all new store openings. Growth is paused. Focus returns to quality. 4. Cuts his own salary. He reduces his annual salary to $1 to send a message. This is not about me. This is about saving us. 5. Retrains every single barista. Howard shuts down all 7,000 stores in the US for one day. It costs millions of dollars in lost revenue. But to him, it's worth it. That day, every Starbucks partner goes through espresso retraining. Howard says, "We're not just fixing technique. We're bringing back pride." Howard focuses on restoring the magic. Better espresso machines for consistency and flavor. No more microwaved sandwiches. The smell ruined the coffee aroma. More focus on eye contact, conversation, personalization. Redesigning stores, making them feel like real third spaces again. He also introduces new ideas. Free Wi-Fi in all locations. Mobile ordering for faster service. The Starbucks Rewards app, which becomes one of the most successful loyalty apps in the world. Howard also begins to shift Starbucks into a force for good. He increases investment in fair trade coffee, supporting small farmers in Latin America and Africa, ethical sourcing, ensuring farmers are paid fairly, sustainability, reducing waste, promoting recycling, diversity and inclusion, hiring more veterans, minorities, and refugees. He says, "Success is empty if you're not lifting others with you." And Starbucks becomes more than a coffee company again. It becomes a brand that stands for something bigger. By 2010, the world sees something incredible. Starbucks rises again. Here are the results. Revenue climbs back to $11.7 billion. Net income grows to $946 million. Stock price recovers to over 30. Customer traffic increases. Employee satisfaction rises. Brand trust is restored. From Wall Street to Main Street, people say the same thing. Howard Schultz saved Starbucks. But more than numbers, something else returns. The aroma of real coffee. The sound of soft music. The sight of baristas smiling again. The energy of connection inside stores. The Starbucks experience is alive once more. Howard walks into a store in Brooklyn, not far from where he grew up. He sees a young barista hand a cup to an old man, smile, and say, "This one's on me today, sir. You always brighten our day." Howard smiles. "That," he says, "is what it's all about." Part 4. The Final Cup. Legacy of a Dreamer Who Never Gave Up. It's 2017. Starbucks has fully recovered. The brand is stronger than ever. It has over 25,000 stores across the world, a market value of over $80 billion, over 300,000 employees, one of the most recognized logos on the planet, customers in more than 70 countries, a stock price that has grown by thousands of percent since its IPO. The Starbucks app is one of the most used mobile payment platforms in the US, even beating Apple Pay in some markets. But more than numbers, Starbucks has become a global habit, a part of people's lives. From students to CEOs, from Tokyo to Toronto, from Mumbai to Miami. People walk in, speak their drink out loud, and feel heard, seen, and valued. By now, Howard Schultz is in his early 60s. He often walks into stores quietly, unannounced. Sometimes he watches a single mother working on her laptop, sipping a latte. Sometimes he sees a homeless man being handed a warm coffee by a smiling barista. And sometimes he hears the sound of laughter, music, and peace. And he thinks, this is exactly what I dreamed of. Not a product, a place, a feeling. He didn't want to build the biggest coffee company. He wanted to build the most human. And he did. Let's pause for a moment and look at the scale of what Howard built. Metric then, 1987. Now 2017. Stores 6, 25,000 plus revenue. 5 million year, over 22 billion year. Employees a few dozen over 300,000 countries, 1 US. Over 70. Stock price, IPO. 17 share, over 60 share company value. 250 million over $80 billion. All this from a man who grew up in public housing, who saw his father suffer and promised he'd never let workers feel unseen again. In 2017, Howard Schultz once again stepped down as CEO, this time on his own terms. He said, "It's time for a new generation to lead, but I'm not leaving. I'm just passing the torch." He handed the leadership to Kevin Johnson, a former tech executive and longtime Starbucks board member. Howard remained chairman, still involved, still passionate, but no longer in daily operations. But Howard didn't retire to relax. Instead, he turned his energy toward social impact, human rights, veteran employment, helping underserved communities, fixing the American dream. He launched initiatives to hire over 10,000 military veterans, offer free college education to Starbucks employees through partnerships, provide employment to refugees and disadvantaged youth, advocate for racial and economic equity. Howard believed that companies have a responsibility bigger than profit. We are not in business to make money alone. We are in business to elevate humanity. Most people don't know this. But Howard's desire to care for employees, build a warm company, and serve people with dignity came from personal pain. His father, Fred Schultz, was a delivery truck driver. One day he slipped on ice and injured his hip. He was fired. No compensation, no support, no respect. Howard was only 7 years old at the time. He never forgot how his father sat at home, broken, both in body and in spirit. I saw what happens when workers are invisible. Starbucks became the answer to that pain. So he built a company where even a part-time barista got healthcare, stock options, education, and dignity. In 2019, Howard announced he was exploring a run for President of the United States. Why? Because he believed that leadership meant service, not power. He wanted to bring the same human-first philosophy he used at Starbucks into the political world. Although he eventually dropped the idea, the message was clear. I was a poor kid from the projects. I built something that touched the world. So why not use that experience to heal even bigger things? Today, Howard Schultz is retired from Starbucks, but the culture he built still lives in. Every smiling barista, every warm cup of coffee, every customer who sits and feels at peace, every employee who is called a partner, not a worker, every morning ritual that begins with a name written on a cup. He turned coffee into connection. He turned a commodity into a community. And he showed the world that you can build a billion-dollar company without losing your soul. What you can learn from Howard Schultz. 1. Your past does not define your future. A poor boy from the projects can build a global brand. 2. Rejection is not the end. It's the beginning. Howard was rejected 217 times before someone believed in him. 3. Lead with your heart, not just your head. Profit is important, but people are everything. 4. Your business is your legacy. Every decision you make leaves a mark on someone's life. 5. Success means nothing if your people feel invisible. Howard built a company to heal the pain he saw in his father's eyes. Howard once said, "Dream more than others think practical. Care more than others think wise. Expect more than others think possible. And don't be afraid to be the only one who believes." He believed. And because he believed, today, over 100 million people walk into Starbucks stores every week, not just for coffee, but for comfort, connection, and a small piece of hope. And it all started with a boy who had nothing except a dream and a reason to never give up. This is the end of the Starbucks story. But this should be the beginning of your story. Maybe you have no money. Maybe your family never believed in you. Maybe you feel invisible. But remember this: if Howard Schultz could do it, so can you. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for comfort. Don't wait for the world to clap. Start now. Build. Believe. Begin. Because your dream matters.